Welcome back. Joe, it's great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
We're going to talk about the great ice storm of 2005. What I'd like you to do first, if you would tell us a little bit about your job. You're the Electric Division Superintendent for the City of LaGrange. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
That's right. I'm in charge of all daily operations for the City Electric Division. Everything from the substation to the meter for 13,000 or so customers. A lot of stuff in between. So that's what we do.
So when we have these major events with the ice storms and all, that gives a lot of work for you to do, right?
Exactly, sure does.
Now tell me, is everything back on?
Yes, sure is.
Very good. One of the things we talked about when we were talking earlier, tell me how you prepare for an event like this, or can you really prepare for something as severe as the ice storm we had a few weeks ago?
Well, you can to a certain extent, and we tried to do that. Put some extra material on the shelf, talk to some folks outside LaGrange. Contractors kind of penciled them in, but that's really about the best you can do. Something of this magnitude, it's impossible to have enough folks in the yard the next day. You just have to kind of take help as it frees up from other places, and of course we did that. But I think all in all, everything fell into place pretty good. We got everybody back on actually quicker than I ever dreamed we would. So yeah. Everything went well.
Well, now
and safely, fortunately.
Well, that's good too, because there's always a big safety issue, especially when guys are out there working in the conditions that they were working in. Now, do y'all have any special way of monitoring the weather that may be even more than what we get, or do you just watch the Weather Channel like we do?
Well, we do, but the Joint Action Agency that LaGrange belongs to, MEAG Power, which is an acronym for Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia. It's LaGrange and 48 other municipal powers in the state. They have all the resources. They're plugged in directly to the National Weather Service. So they look at real-time stuff, and they've got, current information as good as anybody does. So, and we were talking to those folks through the course of the day on Friday and then Friday night. And we saw we were kind of in the line of fire, so we started, they in turn started talking to some of our other cities in South Georgia that looked like they weren't going to be affected as much, and already had suitcases packed and had folks ready to come north Saturday morning. So that fell into place real well for us, thank goodness.
Well, now, when did y'all realize just how bad it was? Now, I was like a lot of people. I was asleep, and 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and start hearing all these popping sounds with the limbs breaking. When did y'all really realize how bad it was?
Well, of course, we have folks on call all the time, but we put all of our people, I put all of our folks closer to the phone, and I really don't have to do that. They're all good, dedicated folks. So our on-call guys started getting a few calls around 2 or so, and I didn't really sleep very well that night anyway, and stuck my head out the door and saw the way the limbs and the shrubbery and everything was. I said, well, it's here.
It's bad.
So we started calling everybody in and just got back to the office and got mobilized and got started with it.
How many people did y'all have working at the peak?
At one time we had probably 70 plus line personnel and some other city folks too. A lot of the city folks, but some specifically that went with the out-of-town crews. A couple of reasons to show them around, obviously, and so we would have direct communication with them on our radio system. That communicating, especially in a storm environment, it's critical. You have to be able to know where everybody is when you turn this stuff back on.
Yeah.
So that fell into place real well. A lot of the folks with the city did an outstanding job helping us out, in that perspective. So that worked real well.
And I certainly applaud what you did. And I know you would like to have everyone on here as community champions, because I know y'all worked in a very difficult environment. How many customers were actually affected? How many people lost power?
I would say at one time, at the worst point, we probably had between 2/3 and 3/4 of the system off.
Wow.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
So it was that dramatic. It was,
yeah, out
it was
of
that
13,000 or so customers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad it was.
That's and I know that's difficult. Now, Tell me, how do you prioritize your work when something like this happens? You know, everybody wants their power turned back on first.
Sure.
How do y'all prioritize where you go? And tell us a little bit about the system. I know you can't just run out to the end of the line and flip somebody's power on. Somewhere you got to work back from a substation, or you got to do it in sequence. Tell us how you prioritize and how you work it out to the individual home.
Well, the way the system lays out, and our system is no different from most everybody else's in the country. You have delivery points, transmission delivery points where substations are, and feeders that leave out of there and take off and go in different directions through different neighborhoods. Then it gets out and scatters around, and there's taps at different streets, and then it gets down to individual transformers at 2 or 3 or so customers. And that's really the way you prioritize it. The city has a pretty thorough emergency response plan in place for not only for the electric department, for every function of the city, and you know, we go by that too. But really, kind of in a nutshell, you kind of take it in. You put the most amount of customers back on in the least amount of time, and that's where you start at the station and work out. If the taps are in trouble, or house services are in trouble, clear them up, get them out of the road, pick the feeder back up. Then you go back up, then you go back and pick up the side streets. And then, unfortunately, last is individual customers. Of course, from a priority standpoint, the first thing we try to get back on is 911. That is the communication means for not only the city, but the county and all the emergency personnel. We're all on the same radio system, so that's really at the top of the list. And then, of course, the hospital and healthcare facilities, elderly care homes, people that it really affects. You know, from a life-threatening standpoint. Those are at the top of the list. And then industries are next. For one of our industries to have to send folks home from work, I'm sure most folks would rather stay at work and continue to get paid, and rather than go home and they can live with sitting in the dark for a while. But and then it goes, and then it trickles on down through there. But that's kind of pretty much the way it lays out. And the biggest groups of people we can get back on in the shortest period of time, that's how we do it.
Yeah. Well, I've been here now for about 11 years, and we've had several major events. I had not been here long when Opal came through. How does this compare to some of the other major weather events or things that have happened that have caused the power to go down, and we've had those things?
I think Opal was probably the worst I've ever seen since I've been with the city. And it was pretty tough. But this storm, in some respects, almost equal that. We didn't have as many catastrophic problems like broken poles and stuff that takes a long time to repair. But service-related stuff, we probably had as much, or maybe in some neighborhoods more. Some of the neighborhoods, what I call the flower streets, Magnolia, Azalea back over there, literally every other house service was on the ground, not to mention the main line. So some places really got beat up pretty bad. So it wasn't Opal, but it didn't miss it by a whole lot.
Yeah, it was significant, to say the least.
Yep, worst ice storm I've seen in 34 years.
And I didn't ask you, how long have you been with the city?
I'm in my 34th year.
Are you?
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot in 34 years, and this ranks right up there with some of the big problems.
Second, I'd say.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the crews out there working, we talked about this a little bit earlier. We see the limbs down, we see the lines down and everything. Normally, do your crews are they the ones out there cutting the stuff off? They're cutting the trees off and then putting the stuff back up to it? Do you kind of have separate crews? Or does everybody have to do a little bit of everything?
Yeah, well, our guys have to do some of that. But in a case like this, we have our own tree trimming crews, and plus the street department has crews that cleared the streets and got the streets where you can get a vehicle down through there. We took the right-of-way crews, put them out ahead of the construction crews. We have one right-of-way contract crew in LaGrange now, so I called them up and got them headed up. We put those guys out in front of the linemen and cleared the lines, got the trees off of them, and then our guys came in and put the stuff back up and plugged it back in.
So everybody kind of has to work together.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is a question I think you always have to ask. Did you learn anything this time that maybe will help in case we have this happen again?
Well, sure, yeah, you always, if you're paying attention, I think you learn something on every day. I do every day. I don't know, that's something of this magnitude. If you ask me, would I do anything differently? I really don't know of anything dramatically we could have done different. I think all things considered, we did our folks did an excellent job, and we had some outstanding help from outside. So I was real pleased with the way it came back up.
I too think y'all did a fantastic job. Of course, nobody wants to get their trees cut. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that could be done in terms of maybe more tree trimming?
This is the time of year that anybody will, after this, we can cut all the trees we want.
They'll let you now.
They quickly forget. In a couple of weeks, that'll go away.
July and August, they didn't want to do it, but now,
No, yeah.
if it'll keep the power on.
That's just part of the deal. Probably 75 or 80% of our problems are tree related. Mm-hmm. Under normal circumstances. Yeah. And that's just the nature of the beast. We have to trim the trees. Some people don't care one way or the other, and some people will lay down in front of the truck. Yeah. That's just, you just have to go around those and going down the road. Yeah. But yeah, a good right-of-way program, which we do a good job. There's a little room for improvement, but we're getting better at it. Pretty good sized system. We're trying to get to a 3-year cycle. That pretty much fits LaGrange, if we can get to that, and we're almost to that. But if you have trees that are 50 or 100 feet away from the line, those are trees that wouldn't be trimmed anyway. Yeah. So there's really not a whole lot you can do about that. They fall, you just go get them off and pick it back up. Yeah.
Well, now we're about to run out of time. Are there any other issues or any other things you'd like to mention related to this incident, or people preparing what they might do to get ready in case this happens again?
Well, there's a few things. One thing in particular I'd like to mention, and we don't always get to ask this question until people are out or some of their personal property is damaged or torn up. A lot of people don't know what belongs to who. And just to kind of clarify that, the point of demarcation is the meter on our system and everybody else's. The power line coming to the house and attaches to the house, and the meter belongs to the city. Everything else belongs to the customer. You'd be surprised how many people thought that we would put everything back up, which unfortunately we can't do that. That belongs to the customer. And people live their whole lives and don't know that that's their stuff until it gets torn down. Yeah. So we enlightened a lot of folks, I guess, the hard way, because they just didn't know any different. They assumed it all belonged to the city, which it doesn't, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you being here. We appreciate all the hard work that you and your crews did during this time. Give them our appreciation as well. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Joe Greathouse. Joe is the Electric Division Superintendent for the City of LaGrange. I hope you've enjoyed our show. If you know someone that you would like to nominate as a community champion, please let me know. You can email me at ronix@charter.net. We hope you enjoyed our show and that you will be back again next week for another edition of Community Champions.